Welcome to Mom Matters, created by moms for moms. It's a safe space for moms' voices to be heard and for moms to lean in and support each other. We have a mom today who happens to be a pediatric sleep consultant. Her name is Natalie Shellworth, and she's here to help give advice on debunking sleep myths, on helping our kids have the best night of sleep ever, and most importantly, helping parents regain that beautiful night of sleep. Natalie, hi. Such an important conversation. Sleep is so essential. Why is it so important to parents and children and families in general?
Oh, it's so critical. It's really the foundation of everything for a family: health, mood, well-being, and especially for kids when they're younger. They need it for brain development, growth, emotional regulation,
Yes.
and immune health.
Yep.
And then for parents as well, you know, all of the above as well, but for them to be able to function during the day, right? And do their job and be a parent and have more patience.
It is, I mean, sleep is the foundation to everything. Any medical issue that you have, they always go, are you sleeping well?
Exactly.
That's the first thing that anybody ever asks. Are you sleeping well? Physical, mental, emotional health, financial health, making sure that you're thinking clearly and making good decisions. Sleep is so profound.
Absolutely.
But it seems to be one of the biggest things families struggle with. Why is that?
There's so much information out there, and there's so much inconsistent advice being given, whether it's on social media or from parent or your family and friends. And you may try one thing one day and it doesn't work, so you switch to another, and you know that cycle. But you also have a lot of parents that are constantly thinking they need to respond to their child, especially when it comes to at night when they're crying. And then that blurs the line between comfort and sleep dependencies.
Okay.
We call them sleep props.
Yes.
So then you add in sleep regressions, teething, and inconsistent routines, and sleep just spirals for the whole family.
Yeah, it's a slippery slope.
It really is.
Right?
Yeah.
And I think as a parent, I will say in my own experience, when I stop to think about sleep hygiene and sleep health, I think about infants, right? Going, oh yeah, you know, we're beyond the infant days. We're good. We got sleep in a bag. No, we don't.
No.
Which leads me to my next question. What is the most common struggle you hear about within families?
It really starts usually with 4 months sleep regression,
Okay.
where your baby slept great from day one, and then you hit that regression and they're up multiple times a night and you're wondering what just happened.
Yes.
And then you start doing anything and everything to get the child to sleep, which then creates bad sleep habits.
Yes.
Whether it's bringing them into bed or rocking them, feeding them to sleep, all the things just to get them to go back to sleep.
Yes, and this isn't just something too in the developmental years. Like I've noticed, because I have older children, I have one in high school, one going into middle school. Now that the older child is out doing things, I'm now the worrying parent staying up too late, which is impacting my sleep.
Exactly.
And then my middle schooler, you know, now developing other things when it comes around sleep that I'm like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
We had this in the bag. Why am I still awake? And why are you waking me up?
Exactly.
This is about maintenance.
It is. Routines and
routine.
being consistent.
Okay, okay. Let's talk about some myths surrounding sleep training. I want to start though for the younger generation, right? So, because we as parents, we are introduced into this role having a lack of sleep.
Yes.
When you have an infant, like you sit and you go, oh, sleep, what was that?
Right.
Something I used to do that felt real good, you know, and then because you have this baby. And so then obviously priority becomes getting this baby to sleep well. But then all of a sudden you go into toddler years and things shift.
Yeah.
So let's talk about myths surrounding sleep, especially when it comes to those early years.
Yeah. So I think a big one is, and I fell for this too as a first-time mom, you're told, welcome to parenthood, you're never going to sleep again, which is not.
That's the first thing they say.
It is, and it's not true, and it shouldn't be. You really need to prioritize sleep.
Okay.
And you can work on it to create better sleep habits, right?
Okay.
And then going into myths around sleep training that parents have, a big one is, I think a lot of people still have the notion that sleep training is only the cry it out method. When nowadays there's so many different kinds of methods that you can use that are like the one that I use particularly is very responsive and supportive to the child. So a lot of parents get stuck with, I don't want to do the cry it out. You don't have to. Another big one is my child is older and we've missed the bus on sleep training. I can't do anything about it. And again, not true. Yes, when they do get older, it can be a little harder to break those habits, but you can always, always help your child be a better sleeper.
Thank you. Need to hear that. Okay, and keep going.
Another one I would say is people worry about that sleep training breaks the parent-child bond. Again, depending on the method that you're using, that's not necessarily the case. The method that I use, the parents are in the bedroom with the child for the first part of the program, constantly giving support and helping your child learn this new skill. But it's just like learning a bike. You can't throw your child on a bike and they pick it up right away. But you also are there to give support, but ultimately your child has to be the one to figure out the balance.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Right? And to learn how to pedal. Same with sleep consultant or sleep training.
Yeah.
You're there supporting, but ultimately they have to learn the skill themselves.
I like that.
Thanks.
That's a perfect analogy for life, though, too, right? That's just parenting in general. It is. It's like, I'm here to catch you, baby, before you fall.
Exactly.
But you got to ride this bike on your own.
You do.
Yeah, no, I like that. Okay. Give some advice for parents, though. Where do they begin when it comes to a better night's sleep? So they have the new baby. What's the first piece of advice that you would give?
Consistency.
Okay.
Yep. I always start with, you need to have a good bedtime routine. It's all about, we all have our own bedtime routines. We may not recognize it, but we need to have a cue for our body to be ready to go to bed. You're not going to make dinner, do the dishes, and lay down in bed and go to sleep, right? You have your routine, your body calms down, your body recognizes, oh, we do this every night, and after we do these things, then you go to bed. Same with a kid. They need to have that calm down time and know every single night this is going to happen and we're going to go to bed afterwards.
Great. Okay, Natalie, I really want to get into the weeds on these, in particular the myths. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, though, I want to talk more about debunking some of those common sleeping myths, because I know there are many, many more to talk about. Okay,
yes.
That's when we come back. And welcome back to Mom Matters. I'm talking with Pediatric Sleep Consultant Natalie Shellworth. She's giving us advice on to help ensure a good night's sleep for the entire family. Okay, Natalie, when we left off, we were just starting to talk about myths surrounding sleep.
Yeah.
So what are some of those myths? I want to walk through each of them in particular and get a little more into the weeds about why they're false and how you would correct that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So let's start with that first one that I mentioned about that a lot of people think that the only way to do sleep training is the cry it out method.
Okay.
That was probably the first method way back in the day, but we have developed many, many methods, and it just depends on your comfort level. And I'm not saying that the cry it out method doesn't work. Some people are okay with doing that, and other parents really hate the idea of leaving your child and letting them cry it out. But there's steps for different programs, whether it's the Ferber method, where you put them down and leave the room, but continually go back and check and increase the time in between. I used that on my first son, only because I didn't know of the other methods.
Yeah.
And then there's methods like mine, where you are in the room with your child and you give less and less support as they're learning the skill through the couple weeks that you're working through the program.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so, and what's another myth?
Another myth would be that my child's too old. They're over a year old. I've missed the sleep training bus. It's not the case at all. Sleep is a skill. And so you can learn a new skill at any point in your life. And it may take a little bit longer with those older kids, but you also benefit with having older kids. You can actually have a conversation and explain, why is sleep so important? This is why we're changing it, and work with them a little bit more. Whereas a 1-year-old, it can be a little challenging to try to convince them to change their ways.
Yes, you're driving that bus.
Exactly.
Whereas this, when you have older kids, they at least get to be a part of the decision making and the conversation around it, maybe finding some solutions.
Exactly.
On that, I do want to deviate just a bit. Let's talk about sleep training, though, because I think as parents, when we stop to think about sleep training, we do think about the infant years, right? We think about the toddler years. What about when our kids are older, they're starting adolescence, they're maturing, which in itself, that hormone shift causes issues with sleeping.
Yes.
And the social aspect as well, out later, doing more activities, things adjust.
Yeah.
Give some advice for parents in that chapter.
I would say make sure that your child's getting enough sleep. It's really more about the hours, and so just don't have them out every single night until midnight. You want to make sure that they're still getting their 8 to 10 hours of sleep in those adolescents. They're still growing. They need that time to process what they're learning, to grow, to fight off, the illnesses that are going around them and all that stuff. But like you said, life happens and there's things going on. But as long as you're not doing every single night, just
So does it kind of go back to that consistency again, right?
100%. Yep.
It's like you can deviate on occasion, but always coming back to home base.
Exactly.
And making sure you're following through with that program and that understanding of why you need to be hitting those marks.
Yeah. And I'll throw in, a big one is screen time. You definitely want to, I know.
Screens.
You got to turn the screens off.
You do.
An hour or two before you go to bed for anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a rule in our house. Is
Good.
you have to have your screen off at least 2 hours before bed.
Perfect.
Not only for sleep, but also to disconnect.
Absolutely.
As a working parent, I
Yeah.
could literally be answering emails until midnight.
Yeah.
If I chose to do
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's not healthy.
No, it's not.
No.
Not in the least. All right, so back to the myths, though. Out of the myths that you encounter, which one would you say is the one you hear about the most, that you're constantly debunking?
I think it stems back to that first one that I said about the cry it out. A lot of people equate crying equaling pain. And so I do a lot of work when I'm working through a sleep plan with parents to explain and for them to understand what crying is really about. Especially when you have a baby or a toddler, they only communicate through crying. But crying doesn't automatically mean that they're in pain. It can mean I'm hungry, I'm uncomfortable, protesting, or I'm in pain.
Yeah.
And so most of the time when we're dealing with trying to help them create this new skill, we're asking them to do something they've never done. And so they're saying, I'm uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I don't like this. And they're doing their job. They're protesting.
Yeah.
And we just need to be gentle with them to help them learn a new skill.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back to the crying it out, right? Like that's one I grew up with. That's the advice I received from my elders.
Right.
How do parents now, with all these different options, how do they navigate debunking those myths, especially when maybe you're a new parent and you do lean on the advice and support from your mom and your grandmother or just your your community and your friends? How do you debunk those myths in a group as a new parent going, no, you know what, I'm going to be using this method. Please hold fast to this, right?
Yeah. It's all about creating the boundary and being, gentle and confident in your choice. They can disagree with you, but ultimately you're the parent of this child and you need to do what's best for your family and not worry about what other people are saying. And you can help provide even the sleep plan. If you've already had a sleep plan, you can say, this is what we're doing, take a look at it, and help educate them, because a lot of people don't have the full picture of what sleep training means or what self-soothing is and why it's important, and the whys and the explanation behind sleep training itself. Also, again, it's just so important that you're the parent and you get to make the decision of what's best for your family.
Yes.
Yeah.
And really quick, before we go to break, is this something that you should communicate to a child care provider? If your kid is like in a daycare, goes somewhere that is outside of your family unit?
Absolutely. And that can get a little tricky. There are daycares that are very regimented and have a harder time following what you need them to do. But if you say, this is really important, is there any way that we can work with you so you can stick to the schedule that I'm supposed to stick to for a couple weeks while my child's learning this new skill? It's all about communication and seeing if they'll work with you. On that note, if you really run across somebody that, or a daycare that's like, we can't do that, it's not going to break the ability for your child to learn this new skill if it's not being done at daycare. You can still be consistent at home.
Oh, that's reassuring.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
It may take a little bit longer,
Yeah.
but you absolutely can do it.
Oh, great, because mom and dad are setting the tone.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm sure that probably helps a lot of people go,
Right.
because finding childcare is a whole other conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's a hard one, too.
It is.
All right. I would love to give our viewers some advice. So when we come back, I'm really hoping what we can share is step-by-step guide for better sleep.
Sounds great.
Not just for kiddos, but also ones that are likely going to be impacting the family as well. That's when we come right back. Welcome back to Mom Matters. We are discussing sleep training for the family. Yes, infants, toddlers, children, but also possibly some information that can lean over into parents as well. Joining me right now, we have pediatric sleep expert. Her name is Natalie Shellworth, also a mom who has experienced this exact journey that we are discussing today.
Indeed.
We have covered common problems, sleep myths that need to be debunked. Let's get more into helping parents find that successful journey to better sleep.
Yeah.
This obviously begins with children, but let's talk about those first steps. What's the first thing parents should do?
First step is, it's really important to make sure there's no medical underlying issue, whether it be sleep apnea. Some parents don't recognize that their child has sleep apnea, and that's a big thing. Tongue ties and lip ties when they're younger can be a huge influence of how much they're getting fed, and thus, just being crabbier.
So they're going to sleep hungry and waking up hungry all the time.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. So identifying those, and sometimes even iron deficiency can affect children's sleep. So making sure there's no medical, that's always what I start with, just to make sure that I can proceed with just a sleep plan and not have to worry about a medical, something that we need to be addressing.
Okay, got it. So first and foremost, though, if a parent is having a hard time with their child sleeping, go to the pediatrician.
Absolutely. Start with your
and ask them,
pediatrician.
is there something physically going on here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. But once that's cleared,
Yep.
what do we do?
The second one is you want to, as parents, figure out and come up with clear understanding of what your goals are for sleep training.
Okay.
Because good sleep can be different for each family. So does it mean falling asleep faster, having less wake-ups, or even just having your child stay in your bed? So you want to make sure that you understand where you want to go in this sleep training journey.
I'm so glad you mentioned that, because I think too that within a couples unit, parenting, especially first-time parents, having a clear understanding of what they're both comfortable with, right?
Absolutely,
Because one
yes.
parent might be like, oh, it's totally fine for so-and-so to sleep in our bed. And the other
100%.
parent's like, no, that's not okay.
Exactly.
Right?
You've
Or
got to be on the same page.
I have no problem getting up and reassuring on occasion, where the other one's like,
Exactly.
Right, okay, so making sure that you're on the same page.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
The second one, we've talked a lot about this, is you want to create that consistent bedtime routine. I can't emphasize that one enough. So make sure that it's 20 to 30 minutes. You have 3 to 4 steps that you're doing at the same time in the same order every single night.
Okay, so 20 to 30 minutes.
That's it.
Nothing longer.
Nope.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I'm glad you said that.
Yep.
Because I will say that there are times with my older children that were like, okay, it's time to get ready for bed. My husband is so good at going to bed on time. Like I'm so jealous of his ability. But and I'm bad myself. I'm like, okay, it's time to get ready for bed. Hour and a half later, I'm like, okay, get into bed now.
Exactly.
But I started the process a while ago.
Right.
With a bath, with this, with a cup of tea.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So 20 to 30 minutes.
Yes.
All right, great advice. Okay.
The next one is you want to make sure that their sleep environment is cozy and is cozy and inviting.
Yes.
So especially here in Idaho, blackout curtains. you've got to have the blackout curtains. We do not have enough dark nights during the summer.
Well, we're one of the states in the entire country that has the longest or the most sunlight,
Right.
especially this time of year in the summer.
It's so hard
Right?
on
Our
kids.
sun sets sometimes around 10.
Seriously. And
later.
up at 5.
Yes, and
you
up
know?
at 5. It's
Yeah.
like, what just happened? Yes. Okay.
So if you have a child that still needs 10 to 14 hours of sleep,
Yes.
you got to help them by keeping that room dark.
Okay.
So
Yeah, because our bodies are programmed to awaken by light,
exactly.
natural light.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
So blackout curtains, sound machines, block out
I
the
love sound
external,
machines.
right? It just helps so much.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
You don't want it too high, and you want it set away from their crib so they're not blasting it in their ear, but this helps immensely.
Yes.
And you don't want it too hot or too cold in their room.
Mm-hmm.
Usually this time of year you want to have it a little cooler, because cooler just helps everybody sleep a little bit better.
Yes.
So,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Is there, like, what would you say would be a good temperature? Is there like, or is it more of like a preference? 'Cause
No,
I've heard
I would
anywhere
say
from 68 to
between-
70 degrees.
That's what I would say, 68 to 72.
Okay.
You know, and you can obviously adjust what your child is wearing. I just moved my kiddos to shorts and shirts recently because
Yes.
it's so hot. So, you know,
Yep.
you can do that as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other tips that you would give first and foremost on top of that?
Consistency. If you're going to pick a sleep training method, whether you're working with a sleep consultant or trying to do it on your own, you cannot try it for a night or two and then give up.
Yeah.
You're teaching a child a new skill, and anytime you learn a new skill, you have to be consistent and let them practice and get comfortable with it. And so it takes 2 to 3 weeks. You need to
Okay.
be consistent and stick with it 100% of the time.
Okay, 2 to 3 weeks.
Yep.
Within that 20 to 30 minute window of your starting your sleeping process,
Mm-hmm.
what are some things, some activities that are good to do in the 20 to 30 minute process?
Yeah.
And what are some activities you most certainly should avoid?
Let's start with the should do
'Kay.
or can do.
Yes.
I never was able to do it every night, but some people really like doing a bath every night. It's something that's out of the routine that you don't do at any point of the day unless you absolutely have to for,
Yeah.
whatever, an accident. But it helps trigger the body for the kiddo to be like, oh, it's bath time. We must be starting the bedtime routine.
Mm-hmm.
So a bath, books, singing, just
Coloring.
I wouldn't do so much coloring. I mean, if
that
that
too
calms them
engaging?
down a little bit, yeah. You can put on soft music. A lot of people like lullabies, or if you are reading, don't fall into the trap of sitting in a rocking chair, because rocking can also be a sleep prop.
Oh.
Yep. So we always advise sit on the ground
Okay.
and read books on the
Explain
ground.
sleep prop really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So a sleep prop is any external thing. It can be nursing, feeding, rocking, holding, or even laying next to your, say, older child, that the child then depends on to get them to fall asleep, as well as during those natural night wakings that we all have. They wake up and they think, I have to have that thing.
I need to be rocked in the chair,
to go to sleep.
opposed to being able to self-soothe.
Exactly.
Got
Yep,
it.
that's it.
So back scratching would be included in that.
Yes. Yep. Unfortunately, you can do a little, but
Yes.
as long as they are not falling asleep completely while you're doing it,
Okay.
I would avoid it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. What are things, okay, so like you said, don't do things that may fall into the area of sleep prop. Screen time. We touched
time,
on
yep.
this a little bit,
Exactly.
but let's talk further about that. Why is it so important to put the technology down before you go to sleep?
You need to have your brain disconnect and just be calm. There's so much stimuli and noises and light when you're watching screens that it just, your brain is still going 100 miles an hour. It needs to disconnect and just be calm.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I've heard too, the blue light in particular from a screen is what's
Absolutely.
really stimulating to the brain.
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
So on that note though, if you're putting away your screens, would you also recommend maybe turning the house lights down a little bit if you can?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even just starting, move them up to the bedroom and turn out, put the blinds down or make sure your curtains are closed.
Maybe turn on a lamp opposed to the bright overhead
Exactly.
light and just get things a little
Make it
more
calm.
Some mood lighting.
Exactly.
Sleepy time lighting.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Set the tone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you kind of hinted to this, 2 to 3 weeks. Is that a good window for how long you will know if this is working or if you need to adjust something?
Yeah. And even when I'm working with clients, sleep training, it's not a one size fits all. So I may start out with a plan that looks similar to one that I've already had with another family, but each child is so individual that I am constantly tweaking things, whether it be if it's a baby that's still napping 3 times a day, we may need to adjust the awake windows or the bedtime. It all depends on that individual child. So it's a little harder when you're doing it yourself, but it's absolutely doable. And you just really, at night, you want to make sure that you're not, again, having an overtired child. And so just knowing that you may need to adjust some things along the way.
What if you're a parent who has an infant and a toddler? Which I imagine you probably deal with quite a bit,
Yes.
right? So 2 different sleep processes and schedules for these kids?
Yeah, they can line up a little bit. A big mistake that a lot of parents make with even kids that are between the ages of 3 and 12, they still need 10 to 12 hours of sleep a night. So you can still have an early bedtime for both kiddos. It may need to be adjusted a little bit, but that's where it helps to have 2 parents and help do different bedtime routines, or at least, it does
Divide
take a
and
little
conquer?
bit. Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Yeah.
maybe take shifts.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
got this baby tonight, I'm taking that baby.
And that helps as
Yes.
well as for the child to know that it's not just one parent.
Yes.
So, absolutely.
Yes.
Tag teaming for sure.
Yes, tag teaming for sure.
Yeah.
And I think you kind of mentioned that it's not one size fits all. So I imagine too, as parents create these routines, then they can actually customize them a bit for these kids, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. You know your child better than I do, and you may find that you start out doing even the stay in the room method. There are some kids that react 100 times worse when the parent's in the room, and then so you switch to, say, a leave and check method, and the child does much better, and you see rapid changes and improvements.
Okay, well, on that note then, is this a process too that parents should probably enter a little open-minded?
Absolutely.
Being like,
Yes.
okay,
Yes.
well, I think this is going to work, and when it doesn't, don't get all frustrated.
Absolutely.
Because there might be just a different solution that you haven't considered yet.
100%. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and just because maybe it worked for the first kid, like my first child did great with swaddling.
Yep.
Like real tight swaddling, fantastic.
Yeah.
Happiest baby ever. Second child was Houdini
Right.
and would get her arms out of swaddling in 2 seconds and hated it. And I would be like,
Exactly.
what is happening? Yeah. Why can't we sleep?
Exactly.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And then advice for parents going through this, because you're a mom, you've been through this, you've walked this walk and talked this talk.
Yeah.
Advice for parents that maybe they're struggling, maybe they get their kids down, but then they're just so at the end of the day, where they're just having a hard time, right?
Yeah.
I would love advice, and then maybe advice for the new parent, right? Because I remember my first piece that I was told was, when the baby sleeps, you sleep.
Yeah.
Because then you actually get some sleep, right?
And how often did you actually get that to happen, right?
Not.
Right.
No, because I was like, oh, I get to shower now.
Exactly.
Oh, and I can clean the
get to
kitchen.
clean the house, yes.
Yes, yes.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
You have to be patient with yourself. You need to know that it's normal to go through this, and also know that if it's lasting months, years, ask for help. I think our society so often makes it seem like we just have to get through it ourselves, and it's just part of being a parent, deal with it. But there's so many pediatricians, sleep consultants that can help, and like I said, 2 to 3 weeks, we can help you turn it around. So if you're asking the right people to help, it makes a world of a difference. Yeah.
I certainly hope we brought relief to somebody today.
I hope so too.
And Natalie, where can people find you?
You can Google me at Natalie Shellworth, Sleep Consultant, and you'll find my website. I'm also on Facebook at Natalie Shellworth, Sleep Consultant, as well as Instagram at Natalie Shellworth.
Wonderful. Natalie, thank you so much.
Thank you for having
really
me.
appreciate your help
Absolutely.
and all of your advice and information. And make sure you stay tuned to Mom Matters on Idaho Today. It's at 12:30, and you can also relive our Idaho Today stories by going to the Idaho Today landing page at ktvb.com, and always keep it right here on KTV Plus for more Mom Matters.